everybody, and welcome to Office Hours for another special topic session. In these sessions, we do a bit of show and tell, as well as answering your questions on specific topics. Today, we're going to talk about managing grants, both incoming grants and outgoing grants. I'm really delighted that we've got two familiar faces on the panel, Paige and Nick. Thank you for joining us again, but also that we're welcoming Nikole and Sarah, who are both joining a Hub Office Hours panel for the first time. Thank you, all of you, for making the time to be with us today. I'd just like to remind everybody that none of us on the panel, including myself, work for Salesforce.org. These sessions are run by the Hub community, and we all volunteer our time and talents to share our Salesforce knowledge with you, because we enjoy sharing the knowledge. So we're going to talk probably a little bit about incoming grants first, and then we're going to look at ways that you might manage revenue that your organization distributes, either in grants or in other ways. And I'm excited that there's a community initiative that's been going on to build that kind of grant making for the NPSP. If you have questions, please put them in the chat first, and we'll answer them as we go along. We'll pause if we're talking, or weave the answer to your question into what we're talking about. So questions in chat first, please. And as usual, since there are lots of people on the call, we'd be grateful if you could mute your mic throughout the session, unless you're presenting or we ask you to speak, because then things like that happen, that my voice gets heard in other places, and some of you I know are in shared offices or there's noise in the background. So please keep yourself muted unless you're presenting or answering a question. Thank you. So let's get started. I know that the NPSP introduced some features for managing grants as a separate opportunity record type, possibly about a year ago, but I may be actually months and months out of date. It might have been much longer than that. And also kind of added some extra objects like grant deliverables and things into the incoming side as well. So I'm going to put Nikole on the spot, because I know that you manage both incoming and outgoing money within the Horizons Foundation. So are you using those let's start with the incoming. Are you using those features in the Nonprofit Success Pack?
No, we actually built out our own solution when we set up our Salesforce system in 2014. So if that is something new, we haven't actually explored it yet.
Fantastic. Well, that's great. Are you still using, are grants still an opportunity record type, or do you have the whole thing kind of completely separate?
So they are an opportunity record type. So we have, so I'll just go ahead and we have the opportunity record type that's grant seeking. And then we built out another custom object, which is for the reporting requirements around the grants, the incoming grants.
Great.
And they're linked to the opportunities. Now, if I were building this now, I probably would not have built that separate object for the reporting requirements and just built that within the opportunity itself. But the nice thing about having it be its own object is that the reporting is a little bit easier in terms of pulling reports out of Salesforce, because we don't have to go through, identifying the particular record type and all of that stuff within the opportunities before we can get to the specific stuff that we need. So it's just a quicker report to pull out. But I think we could have accomplished the same thing had we just done the reporting stuff within the opportunity record type.
Well, that's great. So let's have a quick look at that in a moment. I mean, Paige, I think the separate object that the NPSP provides is around deliverables, isn't it? The sort of the next steps on the grant.
Correct. Yeah. So so it's a related object to the opportunity, and it allows you to track all those different deliverables for both the grant submission process as well as once you get the grant, the reporting process. So it's a really versatile object. So it's pretty simple. It's just, you know, it has you give it a name of what the deliverable is. There's a space for a due date. There's a space for a close date, which is when you actually submitted the deliverable, and it's related to the opportunity, and then you can put notes in there. So great way. And then you can also set up some automation around, you know, reminding folks of deliverable due dates and things like that pretty simply.
So I think it sounds quite similar to, because in you're talking about reporting requirements, Nikole. I think essentially you're talking about the same thing, isn't it? Isn't it reporting back to the person who gave you the grant rather than necessarily internal reporting? So
that's exactly right.
So would it be okay if we took a sneak peek and see what you're doing? And there's also
Sure.
okay. There's a little request will come your way about making the presenter. And Norman is asking about sales process to track grant stages. Yes, go ahead.
Are you seeing my screen? I've got my opportunity list. Okay, great. So I'm a Game of Thrones fan. So for this, I put in a bunch of you know, dummy data because this is one of our sandboxes. We have, particularly with our grants coming in, we have anonymous funders, and so I didn't want to share our actual data because of that reason. So I just put in a bunch of Game of Thrones oriented opportunities and accounts yesterday so I could do this with you. So these are the list of opportunities that I put in, and then over here, if we go into this grant seeking reports, we've got a few of them. I think it's not probably as robust as what Paige was talking about, but I will definitely go ahead and show you. So actually, sorry, that was the opportunity that I clicked into. One of these.
And Debbie, Lightning, sorry to interrupt you, Nikole. Lightning is really just a different user interface. So I think you'd find that all of the functionality would be exactly the same. It's just that the page layouts look a little different.
We are in the process of moving everybody into Lightning at the moment. So we just haven't quite gotten there because of some internal other major projects that were happening at the beginning part of this year. But so that's why I'm still using the classic view. I have not gotten quite comfortable yet with Lightning, so I didn't want to have you guys struggle with me through it. Okay, so here we go. You can see that we've got, it's linked to the opportunity. It's got its own record ID. We've got the status of the report, whether it's scheduled, in progress, or submitted, dates due, if it's been submitted, and when it's approved. See, here's where I think what Paige is talking about is a little bit more robust than what we have. We do have the deliverables that we can put in here, but we didn't connect it to any dates or statuses. So that's actually something that I'm going to think about us doing now that I know. And then in terms of the automation, we use tasks and activities to do that. So when a new grant comes in, we put when the report is due, and then anybody who is going to be involved in the report process will get one of these activities assigned to them, and then they'll get the notices in their email, and that will help them keep on top of when those things are supposed to be due.
It's interesting that actually, because Lisa had asked a question about why you would use deliverables rather than tasks, and it feels like actually it's the combination that is the most useful, isn't it?
I think so.
Because it's like everyone can see that there is something that needs to happen in relation to this grant, but actually tracking your progress towards completing it becomes the task, doesn't it?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So Lisa was wondering about assigning deliverables to somebody. I don't think you can actually assign deliverables even in the NPSP, can you, Paige? But you could assign the task.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, with the deliverable, you'd have to set up some kind of workflow that informs someone that it's theirs, and it would be easy enough to probably add that to it and customize it. But yeah, task would be another way to go.
Yeah. Or there's even some other suggestions coming in here, Lisa, about that you could assign an owner to the deliverable. And Sean is even suggesting an engagement plan for deliverables, which is that's a good one too. Nikole, could you take us back to the actual opportunity?
Yes.
Then we can see. Because as I say, I think your report is presumably the reports, therefore, yes, are a related list to the grant itself. That's great.
Yes. You can see that here.
So have you customized the stages for your grant opportunity record type?
Yes, we have. Let me see here.
We're going back to Norman's question about sales processes.
So these are the stages that we have, and they each have their own probability attached to them.
I don't remember. Are there some custom ones? Are there some that come supplied with the NPSP now for similar to this?
I don't know. Paige, do you know if there are?
You know what? I'm not sure if it comes that way, but I definitely, if it doesn't, I would recommend you have your sales process for grants and another one for, major donor kind of gifts, and each one would have each record type would have its own sales process.
Right, and that's true of us, both for the grant making opportunities and the grant seeking ones as well.
Yes, and Trish is saying yes. There are 4 stages that come with grants, and so you can customize that a bit. Norman's follow-up question is asking if a record type should only have one sales process associated with it. Anyone?
I think that would make it a little bit hard because you'd have multiple opportunities for the same grant, if I understand the question correctly.
I don't think you can have more than one sales process for a record type, can you?
That was what I was thinking as well. I was kind of throwing it out and hoping that yes, one of the rest of you would agree with me that exactly yes. So I think you have to. You can reuse the stages, however, can't you? I mean, you don't have to. Yeah, exactly. You can assign those, but you can only have one process. Yeah, everybody's agreeing. There we go. Yes, an interesting thing that, of course, with Lightning, yes, you can set up the bar across the top, so which is great, really, because then you can sort of see it in a much more visual way where things stand with the grant. So what else have you got in here that's sort of that's a bit kind of customized to the record type, Nikole? I see you have some extra dates and things like that, and
We have some information around when the proposal was due and submitted, the commitment date of the grant, when it starts and ends, and also the report date is in here as well.
And I think that comes back to Paige. I think it's true, isn't it, that in the NPSP version, that that next due date, that would be the deliverable, wouldn't it? If you'd filled in a deliverable date, it would roll up to the opportunity. Is that right?
I am just looking at that.
Yes, thanks, Trish. I think I think there's one other thing. The NPSP, I think, allows you to link to a previous grant. Yeah, the next due is the next deliverable. Thank you. I think you can also link to if you'd had a grant from this organization previously.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
Yeah.
There's one other thing that we have that I think might be a little bit unique in that
Go for it.
because we're a community foundation, we have donor advised funds. If people don't know what that is, it's basically, excuse me, a donor is able to do one large donation at a particular time, and they get the tax deductible credit for it the year that they give it, and then it sits in an account that gets invested for them, and over time they're able to grant it out to organizations that they want. And so we also house some giving circles. So it's possible for one of our donor advised funds to give a grant to another donor advised fund. And we don't use the grant seeking for this because there's no reporting requirements between those. So what we've done is we've built this thing called a fund object, which associates all of the accounts and the contacts with the particular fund, because a fund might not necessarily be household based. Like you could have two different advisors to a fund from different, so we have to do it based on a contact thing. So there's a junction object that's been created to associate contacts with their fund. And if you get an opportunity that is going from one fund to another, we have set up both a source fund both a source fund and a destination fund. So you don't lose one of the funds in the process.
Oh, that's really interesting, and it's yeah, it can get extremely complicated, can't it, when you're as you say, keeping track of the source of these when the funds are being allocated from different things.
Right.
Yeah. And Lisa asked another question. She asked about using a separate opportunity grant page layout to be separate from an individual donor page layout. I think yes, I'm sure you did do that.
We did actually, and the grant seeking one is different from also the grant making one as well. So yes, we did set up a completely different layout for that.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, Paige? There's it's one of the beauties of page layouts and record types, because I mean the information that you require about a grant can be very different to what you need for an individual donation.
Right.
Absolutely, yeah. You know, there are things that come with the NPSP. I was just kind of checking back here, like program areas. So grant program areas, what are the program areas that they fund, right? So you can, that's a pick list that you can, or no, that's a text area. And there's, I'm just trying to see what else comes up with that. Yeah, you've got a previous grant gift opportunity, which is a lookup to a past opportunity. So that's really helpful. You also have a closed lost reason. So why, if you didn't get the grant, you can record why you didn't, what was the reason for that for future reference. So lots of good stuff that comes out of the box with NPSP around grant management. Great.
Norman is asking if we can show the Lightning interface with the graphical bar. I'm not sure. Sarah, are you going to be demoing in Lightning, or are you in Classic as well?
I'll be demoing in Lightning, but I don't have Path on any of our pages right now.
Okay.
Add it before I share my screen.
All right, that may be the best way then to figure out how we do it. But I also, before we move off, Nikole, I see that there are some just a couple of, some people are intrigued by your fund revenues, and so there are a couple of very specific questions for you. Sean is asking, reporting revenue on source and destination funds. Are your revenue reports very dependent on record types?
Yes, they are actually. Yes, and we have our accounting system is really, really complex. We have like different cost centers and different funds and different donor types and stuff like that. So we have another object that's called accounting codes. And so the account, you might have the same donation type, but for some reason it has a different accounting code because of the specific fund that it's going into or something like that. So it's based both on record type and also on that accounting code, which is another object that we built.
Got it. And John Fine, hi John, does the fund we see have a balance in Salesforce? So he's saying, does the object add up the inflows and subtract the outflows?
No, because we haven't accounted for the investment piece in Salesforce. So that revenue, that level of detail in revenue actually comes from our finance department, and they use Fund Easy.
Which I think maybe also covers Bill's question about recording investment revenue back to the funds. How are you recording that? You're saying that's all taken care of in accounting, is that right?
That's right.
Okay, great. All right, thank you. Thank you for the distraction into funds, which has obviously got some people intrigued. Do we have any more questions about the incoming side quickly, apart from Norman's questions about Lightning, or comments? Let me give it a minute. Okay. Thank you. Fabulous to see the glimpse, and thank you for creating some wonderful foundations for us. And I'm afraid I'm not a Game of Thrones person, but I'm sure other people appreciated the links a lot. So the incoming, and we may come back to you in a little while, but the incoming part of the grants has always, I think, been a little easier to manage. But I think there's always been a bit of a challenge for organizations who also distribute funds. And that's why I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about this as well. So, Nikole, as you were saying, I mean, you essentially had to build a whole lot of custom objects to be able to distribute revenue as well. But it's been a kind of, it's been one of these things that people would love to have in the, as part of the Nonprofit Success Pack and more generally available. So let me pass it over to Nick. Would you like to tell us a little bit about the work that's been going on to try and bring grant making or revenue distribution into NPSP?
Yeah, definitely. And Sarah, feel free to chime in as I look at you as like this brainchild of all of the goodness that's coming. So really I think there's been rumblings for a handful of years now about how can we make Salesforce and grant management work for in Salesforce, and there's apps that are out there that do it, and in some cases they have more horsepower than what some people need. In other cases they meet their needs. In other cases people are just doing flat out custom builds. And so what kind of genesis of what some of the things we'll show today started from the NPSP Chicago sprint that happened last August. So there's a group of people that kind of noticed those different trends and said, hey, we want to make grants management happen. So the outbound side of grants management happen in Salesforce. And what would that look like in, say, the NPSP? And that was really the genesis of the idea there. And I think there were 8 or 9 of us at that sprint that spent 2 days of, at times, heated conversations, at other times really lighthearted and really cool conversations, really build things out. And it has since, from that sprint, started building an app for outbound grants management. And over the course of I guess now we're coming up on 9-10 months here, getting an app to a point that will actually be launching here soon to the general public. And kind of some common themes that we've really grabbed a hold of are the ability to manage those requests that are coming in. So whether that be the applications that we're doing or people requesting funds, kind of that outbound side of things. So that's really the first main thing that we're trying to utilize. The second thing would be grabbing those programs. And so the concept of maybe a request is coming in specific to a specific program, and so being able to meet those needs is another layer of it. And kind of the third element is the concept of what are the kind of thing about some of those deliverables, but what are those deliverables on the outbound side? And so what are those requirements that someone needs to meet, whether that be different reports that need to be set, or in some cases maybe just different deliverables that are needed, or what are those requirements? And those are kind of the three main core elements of the build that we've done, and kind of what's built into this package right now. And the hope is that, where NPSP was 10 years ago, that's really where we're at now. And the hope is that over the course of the next decade, we'll have quite a powerful tool to what we're seeing with NPSP today. Grants management will be right there, and hopefully it won't take a decade, but it will be iterative steps to get it to do more things from there. So really right now we have the building blocks to make outbound grants management happen in Salesforce, and go from there.
So do you have something you can show us, Sarah?
Yeah, Sarah, do you want to show, or you're probably going to be a better guide than me?
Okay.
Yeah, I have it up and ready. I just need to.
Okay. I'm sending you a request to present. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see Nikole, whether how what they've been doing chimes with some of the custom build that you had to do. So this is going to be an interesting comparison, I think. All right, there you go, Sarah. Take it away.
Which screen are you seeing?
We are seeing a funding request 2018 nonprofit A12345.
Perfect. Fantastic. Okay. So we have, as Nick mentioned, we've been working through multiple iterations of what now is ready to be released to the public. We're going to be doing a demo in the first week in June, date to be announced. So keep your eye on the hub. We have a group called, I think it's called Let's Make Grant Making for the NPSP. I think there's been talk about making that actually called Let's Make Outbound Fund Making for the NPSP, because really what we want to try and do with this now is make it so that any organization can use it. So we've actually got the setup now is that we have this core app, which is not built on anything related to Salesforce.org. It's not built on the NPSP. It's not built on HEDA. It's not built on K-12. So any organization can use this. We've really taken advantage of all the features in Lightning. So we've got an app now. So the setup of this package is going to be much easier than the unmanaged package that you may have seen or tested out on the previous iteration of our work. So we've got now funding programs. So you can see, maybe we have a community support program, and within that we might have some sub-programs. So this is the program for 2018, then you'd have a program for 2019. When this loads in, we're also taking advantage of being able to add report charts directly to the screen in Lightning, so you can see some analytics about your programs right where they need to be. You can track all of the funding requests. This one doesn't have one, but if we go into the sub-program, it should have a funding request. Couple of them. So if we go into 2018 Operation Change the World, you can see we've got all of the high-level information about this this funding request. And I actually see I need to rename. We've changed. We were originally calling this milestones. Now we're calling it requirements. So I need to change this tab name. You can see it's still a work in progress as we're building this. So it will be ready for public consumption the first week in June. So you can see all of the requirements associated with this funding request, the application, final review. So maybe have an internal review panel working on reviewing each funding request that comes in. The contract has been signed. So that same concept that we've been talking about with regards to deliverables or reporting that Nikole mentioned, you can do that here with the outbound revenue as well. And then if we take this a step further, we've got disbursements, and you can see how much of the awarded funding request has been dispersed to that organization or person, and how much is still remaining to be dispersed. We would love to see some of the great features that are available in the NPSP with regards to being able to schedule out disbursements sometime in the future. So even though this will be ready for public consumption very soon, we do also have a roadmap of development and are very open to hearing feedback from anyone about features they'd like to see available in this package.
Oh, shiny, says somebody. You've got your first fan. Sean was asking about defining program and whether you required GAUs. Can they work alongside other examples of the GAU? Bill, thank you for chiming in that the GAU isn't required, but could you incorporate this in?
Yep, so as soon as I put the final touches on this core package, the next step is to then install this in an organization that has the NPSP. We're going to be building extension packages to connect this core app to GAUs through what we call GAU expenditures. So it's a record, it connects your disbursements to GAUs. It could be used for pulling revenue out of GAUs for these funding requests or any other expenditures you might have in your Salesforce. It's a little bit more of a generic concept there for pulling the money out of the GAUs. So then you'd have the opportunities, if you take inbound revenue in your Salesforce, you'd have the opportunities pushing the revenue into GAUs and the GAU expenditures pulling that money out of GAUs. So that's still to come, hopefully next week, being able to build out that extension app. And then we're waiting a little bit on building something for HEDA and K-12. We've heard rumor of some features coming out for HEDA that look kind of like funds, and we want to try and piggyback off of whatever development is happening there. So that's a little bit further down on our roadmap than the NPSP connection.
That's awesome. What about if you have a grant that is funding the disbursement? So with or without the GAU, how would you track the money that comes in order to use it for then dispersing?
I think it would really depend on how you are tracking that incoming revenue. You could very simply create either a custom object that could relate to the funding program and build up, roll up amount available directly here in the funding program. You could create a custom field, currency field that just says, okay, for this program, we've got, $1 million to give out this fiscal year or this calendar year. There are a couple of different ways that you could do it if you weren't using GAUs. It just depends on what you already have available to track that revenue.
Fabulous. More comments, more questions. Yes, from John. I think you were talking a little about this, but it's worth repeating. So Sarah, John is asking, is this part of the NPSP or is this a separate app that works with the NPSP?
This original Outbound Funds app is completely separate from the NPSP. It can be used by any organization. We had several organizations that went through testing of our beta app and really wanted to be able to use it without the connection to GAUs. So this core app could be used by any organization. Then if an organization is looking to connect it to GAUs, we'll have that NPSP extension apps that will allow that connection to take place. We are constantly working directly with Salesforce.org, hoping at some point in the future that this project might even be donated to the NPSP so it can become part of their umbrella of offerings. That is kind of my, future 5 years down the road happy place. Who knows if it's going to take that long, if it's going to happen sooner or later, but that really I think would be ideal so that this feature can get all of the benefits of being part of the Salesforce.org product offering.
Fabulous. And I think you said, Sarah, that at the moment this is unmanaged, but you are about to release a packaged version, a managed package. Is that right?
Yep. The first version of the managed package is in some deployment testing right now, just so that we can draft up some install instructions that are really user-friendly. So we're in that stage right now. Nick and the rest of the team, the community team working on this, are also putting together lots of documentation on use cases, best practices, other ways that you can extend the app and really customize it for your organization that we've not included in this really great starting point. So stay tuned. First week in June, we'll keep posting in the hub about when that demo will be.
And you've just had an from Shannon, who thought it was very shiny, wants to know if you need people to test, and is obviously offering.
Yeah, definitely.
John Fine is asking again: are the outbound grants, what you called the funding requests and things, are they associated with an account and a contact, similar to a contact role for opportunities? For example, the use case he's suggesting is an outbound grant that's going to a school, but how would you know that a particular teacher is involved?
That's a great question. We have flexibility within funding requests for the applying organization. So it could be an entire institution that's applying, a specific person at that institution. And if an organization is managing internal funding requests from programs, we have some organizations in our test group from the beta version of this work that wanted to internal Salesforce users to be able to request funds from internal programs. So we even have the option of having an employee that being the one to apply for funding. So it's really flexible in the install instructions that are drafted so far. We have some suggestions that, if your organization doesn't have any internal funding requests, you might want to remove this field from the page and things like that to really customize it for that organization.
That's cool. That's great. Thank you. And I'm just looking. Yes, that seems to answer John's question. Yes, Sean was saying that the docs that are already out in the community seem to be a little bit different. But is it possible to test this now, or would you prefer that if, as you say, you're very close to the managed package, would you prefer that people wait a week or two? Sarah?
Yeah, we're very close to this version, and it will be a managed package. So if we end up making any changes, whatever you're testing could then be updated by a new version. So yes, please, if you've not yet tested the beta version of the old package, then please hold off for another few weeks, and we'll have that new managed package version ready for you.
That's fabulous. So I think I'm going to punt this one at Nick. Just there's a question from Ian, which people are kind of plussing and plussing. Are you including a web interface for applicants to apply for grants?
That's a great question, and how I'll answer it is that the dream is that will be included at some point, or in an end that the functionality, how we've set it up, is that someone could turn on a community alongside this and allow for that ability, or use a form assembly or whatever tool it would be. So the tool is set up with someone being able to do that and kind of choose their own adventure of how they want to do so. We don't have anything that's built out of the box. One of the things that I'll just mention in terms, I think, kind of answering another question about do these funding requests ever convert to opportunities, and I think that relates to the funding request for the interface, and that we had a cognitive decision to use a custom object versus opportunities and have that be the sole house for tracking these requests. And a lot of that was in mind with the web interface, specifically thinking about Salesforce communities, and if we were to do something on opportunities, that would mean that people would need to have a partner community, which meant a higher cost of ownership. And so our whole focus was to have a lower cost of ownership for someone with this tool as a whole.
Oh, that's a very good point, and thank you. And people, yes, like that community's idea. So that's interesting, because you asked the question, Nikole, about funding requests converting to opportunities. In your organization, do you use the opportunity object for the funding requests?
Yes, we do, actually. So it's its own particular opportunity record type.
But I guess
and we manage.
Go on,
the stages within. We manage the stages within the opportunity record type, and then we have something sort of similar to the funding program, so we call it the grant cycle.
Yeah, so in this situation, it would be two different records. So if someone was doing, say, collecting inbound money for, say, a community fund, those would still exist as an opportunities and could be tied to some of the extensions that are being built out for the fund allocations. And then in turn, the request, which would be a separate record, kind of think about it, I'm filling up the tank via the opportunities and then lowering that tank with the request. And as Sarah mentioned earlier, I think it's the kind of the fun concept that we're going to have there is going to be similar to the NPSP GAUs, just slightly different with a different name. I think it's GAU expenditures will be what we're going to call that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Ian asked, status values for funding requests, are they customizable?
Most definitely. This app is 100% declarative. There is no code here. There's nothing to prevent you from changing values within the system. If you look at this list here, invited, submitted, in progress, and reviewed, awarded, we have status values on almost every record because we know it's important to keep track of where you're at with everything, with requirements, with disbursements. All of those pick list values are customizable.
That's awesome. And Ian, and similarly, and I'll come back to your other question in a moment, Nikole, the use case I'm working on at the moment is granting to individuals. So can you just enter applying contact in the applicant section on the funding request rather than having to have an account, I believe, what Ian is asking.
Yes. Yep, all of these lookup fields here are non-required. So an organization can remove all of the ones they don't need from the page and only use applying contact if you're only interacting with individuals. If you're working with organizations but don't care to know the primary person there that you're working with, you could even remove contact, just keep organization. This is, as Nick put it, really choose your own adventure.
That's great. That's super. Okay, so okay, we'll dig in Nikole's question because this, as well as the sort of the web applicants and the grant or the grant applicants, this is another part of a kind of quite big part, I think, of a lot of revenue distribution. Mechanism for external reviewers. One of our grants process uses a community panel instead of internal reviews. Any thinking about that, Nick or Sarah?
We've tossed around the same idea of communities for that. That's one of the reasons we stayed away from the opportunities object, again, as Nick mentioned, to keep the cost low for community licenses. If somebody wanted to connect a community to something like this, you could even go as far as to use maybe an external chatter group with some chatter-free licenses where folks could log in and you could post information that they needed to review directly to that chatter group. There's several different ways I could see that going. Nick, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, no, I think that kind of fits a lot of things. I think that's an idea that we've tossed around internally on our grants team to as a future phase item or a roadmap item of how could that be, say, the data model for that review that would fit in. It's nothing that will be coming out in June, but I think going back to the choose your own adventure concept with the shell that's there right now, it could definitely be built in with the community rather easily.
And Nick, if you don't mind, just to kind of reiterate this point for people who aren't quite aware of the subtleties of this, it is key that you're not using opportunities in campaigns, isn't it, for this flexibility, as you say, with communities. Could you just explain that again and why it's key?
Yeah, definitely. I'll kind of shed a little light too into I'll share a story while we're at it. When we were at the sprint back in Chicago, we spent quite literally a full day talking about where should a request live in Salesforce, and really the debate was opportunity or a custom object. And all the people on the team had built or had worked with apps that had done either or of those. And so really when we talked through it, some of the things that really came to mind were the concepts of complexities that would be introduced with having to have different record types on the opportunities. So and having that potential for confusion of in and out. And so by having two separate rooms of the house of Salesforce, that helps eliminate the confusion. And the other item too, with how going back to the communities and how communities work, or even how opportunities, there's a lot of dare I say technical depth that goes in there. So things like opportunity teams, opportunity contact roles, opportunity products. There's a lot of things that go in there that could be used, but in some cases they do force you down a certain path. And really one underlying theme that we wanted to have from the beginning, and it continues to this day, is the concept of flexibility. And so allowing someone to choose their own adventure and not be forced down a certain path was really what led us to having a custom object and not using opportunities. So can open up the possibilities for someone, and then allow someone to take what's here in the core and then build it to suit their needs. As I've learned from developing this package, there's 20 different use cases to use this, but we've thought of, and there's probably 200 other use cases. And so when you count for each of those different use cases, that means different tweaks. And so if we make things more rigid or introduce things like a validation rule, some people may not want that. And so by keeping it more open and flexible and simple, that allows people to then more use cases to utilize this tool.
Fabulous. Really great. Okay. Everybody's thinking about it. Oh, this is an interesting question. Sean again. Between grant in and grant out, do you have any ideas on how to connect and also have a budget for grants?
Yeah, that's really what we're thinking around the extension to GAUs, having GAUs be the budget. We're thinking of also even having a connection between GAUs and the funding program, so you can see what funds are specific to that program. That package is still kind of in its early stages as far as conceptual design. We're going to replicate some of what we had in the original version, the beta version, but because we're making it its own extension, we can kind of get a little bit more creative with things, I think. So that will probably be in its early stages next week, and still attempting to have that ready at the same time as this core app the first week in June.
You're already getting feature suggestions already. John, again, would it be possible to have a subledger report that adds up inflows and outflows to show a funding program balance?
Oh, I would love that. You can you can do some of that with just looking at the roll-ups that are on GAUs when we get to that phase. Once joined reports, which I think are beta in summer 18 of Salesforce, once joined reports really become a thing in Lightning, that's totally doable. You'd be able to see the opportunities and the funding requests on each side. and be able to roll up information directly in those joined reports. So I think that would be really exciting.
Sounds like we need to get John at the next sprint or the next working group. Lisa is asking, have you got any more dashboards or any more pretty pictures you can show?
There's not that much data in this version of the app because it was just redesigned like a week and a half ago, just reconfigured. We actually took the dashboard out in this version of the app, and there's some reasons around that. Firstly, there are some features that I would like to use on that dashboard that when I've tested for some of our clients, packaging those and distributing those, some of the new Lightning features don't package very well on dashboards. So I can test it again, adding that dashboard back in and see if it goes well. But I'm just hesitant to do that until some of the new Lightning features around dashboards become a little bit more solid. But we can look at some of the reports. Requests with upcoming milestones. Most of these are tabular or summary reports to be able to keep track of what's going on for your funding requests. Awarded requests sorted by the program code, so being able to see the geographical area served and the population served. You could easily add in charts here to break this down, maybe make this, grouped by the population served within the request. You could see the requested amount, or you could see the awarded amount within these breakdowns. There are a lot of different ways that you can go with this. One of the things that's kind of a downside of packaging a dashboard, at least when I've tried it in the past, is that you can't edit them in the target organization. And so we kind of go back and forth between what do we provide in a dashboard versus what do we provide in some really solid reports that somebody could then add to a dashboard. I know in the summer 18 release, what I've been playing around with is they now have an ability to, I don't see it here. In the summer 18 sandboxes I've played around with, they have the ability to then take this report, and in the dropdown it says add to dashboard. And so adding and creating dashboards is going to become so much easier. So what's the point in providing that in the package when a lot of these charts likely are somebody's going to want to customize them before they build that dashboard for themselves?
That's great. And Lisa says that makes sense. But it's interesting. Yes, it does sound, Sarah, like actually with all these custom objects and the different pick lists and everything, you're providing a very rich data set, which would lend itself to all kinds of slicing and dicing.
Definitely.
Yeah. And just to follow on from that, JD is wondering if you could also do analytic snapshots with it as well.
Oh, that's an interesting thought. Where could you see analytic snapshots being used?
We'll leave that for Jay to chat. And then
we can follow up later. Catch me on the hub.
And an interest. Wondering if Ian again is wondering if a funding request could be linked to a lead.
Oh yeah, you could definitely create a custom lookup field to leads if your organization uses leads, and then you'd have to test out converting that lead to a contact and having that applying contact field filled out instead of lead once that conversion takes place. But yeah, I could definitely see a use case for using leads. Was that something that any of the organizations that have tested the app have asked for? So it's not something that would come out of the box, but you could definitely customize to do that.
And Jay is suggesting he's thinking about pipeline reports, so comparing month to month.
Let's see, do we have any pipeline reports in here? Funding requests. This is all of the open funding requests, I believe. No, these are all in progress. So this, I guess, would be considered your pipeline. These would be open and awarded. And so you could create a funnel from this report. Again, we tried not to create too much directly for you. This is by funding program. The way in which you create the charts in Lightning is a little bit different. So depending on how you would want to see this data, you'd have to move status up if you wanted to see this funnel by stage instead of by program. You could also do it a little bit differently, look at it as a line chart or as a bar graph to see the pipeline of what's coming in. Maybe group it by close date or application date or awarded date, depending on what you wanted to see. It's the hard part with Lightning. You have to get very specific about how you build your reports, because you can't, in Classic, how you could really specify what level of grouping you wanted to see on a chart, but still build the report in the way that you wanted to build it was much more customizable, in my opinion. And so if you want a chart in a specific way in Lightning, you have to build it for that chart in mind.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's a good point. Okay, we have, so that we make sure that this is recorded, if people are interested in finding out more about your initiative or wish to contribute or wish to test it, where's the best place for them to go?
The Let's Make Grant Making for the NPSP Hub group. All of us are participants in that. That group was started up by Bill Corkle. He is on there most frequently out of those of us on the team, so he'll get back to you real quick. We're always looking to expand our group too, so anyone that's looking to get more involved in this community project, we have open arms ready to welcome you to the fold. If you want to work on documentation, there will be several of us at the Denver Sprint in July. There are some of us that are going to be at Midwest Dreamin' also in July. Nick, correct me if I'm wrong on that one.
Yep, July. Okay,
perfect. And so there will be several occasions to connect with us and work collaboratively on this. This is definitely an open source project.
Well, this is fabulous. Thank you very much for letting us have a look around, Sarah, and for the explanations and for responding to some interesting and quite complicated questions. Thank you also, Nikole, for letting us have a look inside your org and that interesting thing of how you had to build out so much of this for your organization before it kind of existed within the NPSP or these kinds of initiatives. And I was going to share with Norman had asked a question about the sales path and opportunity stages and how best we use it. Norman, it seems that you may have left the call. I was going to say I will ask a panel on a future session to to come prepared to talk to you more about sales path. Thank you very much indeed, everybody. Some very interesting questions, some great demos. We had, we normally do the topic sessions at the end of the month. I'd kind of moved it forward, so we were avoiding the Memorial Day weekend. So I hope everybody has a great holiday weekend when that comes. And otherwise, we will be back the first week in June with a general Q&A session and another excellent panel. But in the meantime, thank you very much, Nikole, Sarah, Paige, and Nick, for sharing your expertise. And thank you, Trish, for contributing as well, and to all of those who asked us really interesting questions. So great. Please, if you're interested in the grant making, please go and join the Hub group, which is linked there. And otherwise, everybody have a really great weekend.
Thank you, Caroline, for organizing these.
Thank you.
Not at all.
Thank you.
Thank you.